Looking to improve your life, brush up on your personal growth techniques? You are in the right place. Welcome to Life's Little Lessons with your host, author of Designing Your Own Destiny, Kevin A. Dunlap.
Hello, everybody. This is Kevin Dunlap with Life's Little Lessons, and welcome back to the show. Today, we have a gentleman by the name of Isaac Bardos. He's a life coach, a relationship coach, and a career coach here in Las Vegas, Nevada. And he's been doing this part-time for over 12 years now. He's got some great information that he's going to be loving to share with you. And therefore, let me go ahead and welcome you to the show, Isaac Bardos. And before we actually introduce him, he's in the process of actually about to launch a book. We're going to be talking about that in just a moment. So for those of you that are authors out there, some information he's going to be sharing with you is also going to be very incredible. So anyway, welcome to the show, Isaac. It's good having you here today.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So Isaac, tell me a little bit about yourself. I know you're a speaker. I know you're a coach. You're about to become an author. What's your passion for doing all of this, and why are you doing it?
Well, that's a great question. I would say my passion comes from this. That's partly my personality, but partly because of what I believe. I believe that, we're all here in this game of life trying to figure out whatever it is that we're trying to figure out, but we're all trying to figure it out. We're all trying to pursue the next thing and always looking for, whether that's fulfillment or it's opportunity, or whether, each person has something different that they're going after. I started doing this because I realized that the questions that I had and the direction I was looking for throughout my life, many people didn't have. Even those who were in positions of, either a coach or a counselor or a clergy or a community leader. And oftentimes they didn't have answers that I needed. And one of the reasons I decided that I wanted to do it and why I'm so passionate about what I do is because I want to be the person that I wish I had for the first few decades of my life. And I experienced the need, and I experienced the lack of being able to meet that need from the people that were around and available to help me and to guide me during those challenges and various parts of life. And to be that for others is something that I believe is why I'm here. What is my purpose? And I believe that in fulfilling my purpose, I'm actually helping others fulfill theirs. Okay. And I believe that as we do that, we create more peace, but we also create a better sense of direction and living on purpose in the world.
And in particular, you're into couples and relationship, and I know you also do career coaching. What made you decide to go down that particular route?
So I firmly believe that the quality of your life is based off of the quality of your relationships. Okay. And a big part of any day that we experience is the sleep. Aside from sleep, the waking hours is our career or the people that we are in a relationship with. And if we're not in a relationship with someone, that's also a big part of our day, right? Thinking about that, noticing couples, noticing friends, noticing families that have what we feel we wish we had. And even those who are in relationships at any stage or at any age, those people often notice what could be better or want something more. Mm-hmm. And if the quality of their lives are based off the quality of the relationships, and the relationships are not where they want it to be, then what does that then say about the quality of their lives? So I also believe that when we have peace and harmony and fulfillment in our relationships, there's a domino effect, right? A person shows up at work in the morning. If they had a great weekend with their loved one or significant other, they had amazing growth, they had amazing new memories together. How are they going to bring that and affect all the people that they interact with that week at work? It's going to be positive.
And I mean, that's going to be on the positive or on the negative side. So if they're having a crappy relationship,
exactly,
that's going to bleed over into their work. And then, but if they have a good relationship, then that's also going to bleed over.
So it's the domino effect. And so it's very powerful because so much of the people that of the time that we have during our waking hours are really just with either career or relationships. But if you think about it, everything that we have in life, every single thing, our friends, our neighbors, the people that we interact with, the boards or, committees that we're on, social causes that we're a part of, the spouse, children, significant other, family, extended family, friends, the place where we live, all these things are based off of decisions that came from the relationships that we had leading up until that point. And anything that we want in life, is based off of us and our ability to build and flourish the relationships that are available to us.
Okay. Okay. And do you work like also with people in work settings, or is yours more the interpersonal?
I do. That's where the career part comes from, because when I was starting out, I was thinking about some of the most successful people that I've met in my life and role models that I have. And I noticed that one of the things that they all thrived in was the area of interpersonal relationships. And sometimes we think, relationships and career, they're two separate parts. But if you think about it, the people who are successful in their career also had to start working on and mastering the area of relationships. And we all know people, because I also had managers and directors, supervisors, people who were above me who also did not master relationships, and it suffered and showed up in how their career and their fulfillment in life was negatively affected by it. So a big part, I believe, of the career is learning how, number one, the relationship with ourselves, and also number two, the relationship with that external self of how we're really portraying ourselves and communicating with other people. Going back to the domino effect, if we're doing well in our career, it's also going to affect our relationships. So team building, small business trainings, teaching people in a more unique style how to actually enhance and build their teams in the career setting or their own entrepreneurial mindset to maximize the outcomes that they're hoping to get and really be successful in that, right? This is results oriented too, is a big part of what I focus on. It's not just, talk about and inspire, but results is a huge part, because that's what propels us to continue wanting to make changes.
Okay. And because this show is mainly is also for entrepreneurs. That's what the main reason for the show is. Entrepreneurs either attempting to scale their business or they're starting a new business. Now, obviously, when they're starting a new business, they need to develop relationships with other people, other vendors, other potential partners, or things like that. Is there anything that you would suggest that people start trying to focus on that they may not actually be focusing on?
So when it comes to building your own business, or really any business, there's three major parts to having a really successful, great business. It's something that's unique, right? A fantastic piece about what you offer or how it impacts other people's lives.
Okay.
It's an excellent way of delivering that. So a great concept or great content, great delivery of that product or service. And the third one's a great you. Figuring out what's the best parts of you that actually enhance that service and that delivery or that product, and the way in which you help people improve their lives. Because the more valuable that people believe that you can bring into their lives, the more valuable that you'll be able to bring into your own life. It's a two-way street, right? The domino effect. So when it comes to great business and being successful as an entrepreneur, the number one obstacle and the number one proponent to promote your business and propel it for success is you. So when it comes to being an entrepreneur, very often people wonder why they're not having the success at the rate they're looking for, or what else they can do. And the answer is, you have all those questions and all those struggles and all those challenges, and the answers to making it past those challenges or struggles are inside.
Okay.
So start working on you. Find someone who actually really knows and can understand you well and can help push you and keep you accountable. Because if you know in your heart that you're not doing 100% of all the possible things you can do every day and every hour of every day, and you're not holding yourself accountable, there you have answer number one as to what you need to do to make your entrepreneur or your any business thrive.
Okay. And I fully agree with the accountability, because I have an accountability partner as well that we speak on a weekly basis. And many times I'm really there for her, and many times she's really there for me.
Yeah.
And it is a two-way street, and having that in place is huge if you're going to be building a business. Because if you're not, because in my opinion, most people don't hold themselves accountable.
Right.
And therefore, having an outside force or outside influence is something that could be very beneficial to them.
Right. Big part of also what you're saying, if we feel that we're accountable, then we're going to be more responsible and we're going to show up.
Mm-hmm.
And if we also feel that we're accountable to maybe the other people in our life, right? It's not just accountability in that, what am I doing, but also, what am I going for this after? Like, if I have my own business, what am I in it for?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's, people, if it was money and fame and, the ability to have all this free time and to have, amazing resources and connections in life that brought us happiness and fulfillment,
Mm-hmm.
then everyone in Hollywood would be super happy and super fulfilled and contributing in massive ways to the world. Everyone.
Right.
But instead, what we hear about more often is how people in Hollywood, we're not hearing about these incredible personal development breakthroughs. We hear about, this person's in and out of rehab, this one's having an affair, this one's getting divorced again, right?
Mm-hmm.
Suicides from people that we would least imagine that it would be happening from. And a big part of that is not developing us, right? Focusing on other people, maybe wanting to contribute to other people, but not really realizing that, number one, right, that we are the first step in anything that we want to actually achieve or any impact that we want to make.
Right, and I fully agree with that as well, because you have to work on yourself. And I know for me, since 2010, I started doing taking a lot of classes in the personal growth and personal development arenas, just working on myself, and then not only that, I was then surrounding myself with other people that were of a similar mindset, that were and it was surprising, because so to dovetail this towards your book here in a moment. Just how when you surround yourself with these other, say in this case, entrepreneurs or other people that are working to improve themselves personally, that then the average people, what am I trying to say here? You don't see the major challenges that other people have. As an example,
Right.
when I was writing my book, Designing Your Own Destiny, most people say, who are you to be writing a book? And I was writing a book on personal growth, personal development, as well as finding out what you want to do with your life, career-wise. But with the people I was surrounding myself with were there 100% to support me. They were there to say, okay, well, how can I help you? I said, well, would you be willing to leave a testimonial? Would you be willing to do this? And I'd be surprised at how many people came together by just changing by working on myself, reading books, listening to podcasts, attending live, personal growth events. And like you were just saying, just really working on yourself first, and then having who do you associate with as well, that is there to support you. So
there's a famous saying, I don't know who said it, but we are the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with.
Yes.
Right? So, and that just makes us average, right?
Yes.
That doesn't bring out the best of us. So if we want our average to be higher than it currently is, we got to take it to the next level with who we're spending time with. And that doesn't just mean physically, it also means emotionally, right? Are we spending time nourishing our minds with, media and news and, the current, breaking news, which isn't really new. It's basically the same stuff, just being repeated in different forms, right? If you look at news over the last, decade or 2 decades or 5 decades or 15 decades, I'm sure if you'll see that there's a pattern, that it's there to draw your attention, not to enhance your mental capacity and passion for life.
Correct.
And feeling safe and excited. And so it's important to keep yourself accountable, right? Like you're saying, and constantly develop oneself. And it's also important to kind of keep your eye on what's true north. What is really that thing that's so strong that if there was no thing that was specifically pulling you to get it right now, you would still be going after it. So money, for an example, we often feel a necessity for money. Well, I want this immediate thing, or to eventually, in 40 years from now, retire with this. So without that level of necessity, most people would probably not be as interested in money because they don't see a purpose in it. Right? Paper has no inherent value. My favorite saying is, they say money doesn't grow on trees, right? What do you think paper's made of? Right? So when we have something that really pulls us, we're drawn towards, then we don't feel like we have to push ourselves because we're inherently pulled.
Okay.
And when we don't feel like we're accountable to a purpose or to a cause or to a person, maybe, a spouse or a family that you have to support, then it's a lot easier to just kind of slip and slide.
Well, and I agree because you're kind of saying that you have to have a compelling why as to why you're
Yeah,
doing it.
compelling why. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So, and because that's what's going to get you up in the mornings to say, okay, I'm going to write that essay. I'm going to, whatever that next step is. Maybe you're writing a business plan. Whatever it is
Right.
that gives you that reason to get up there and do it, even if you don't want to do it or it's not your forte, but it's still something that you either hire out or you just
Right.
grind through it and just do it.
And many people feel that they have a compelling why, but the problem is, one of the easiest ways to tell that you don't is if you ever have to ask the question, why, then you don't have a compelling why, and you got to figure that out.
That's true. That's true. So let's talk about because right before the show, you were telling me that you have a book that's coming out here very soon.
Yeah.
And right now that at the recording of this audio, right now we're in December 2017. So Isaac here was saying that he has a book coming out in early 2018. So when this podcast actually is released, it's probably going to be in January 2018. So your book's going to be a little bit closer by the time it actually comes out.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about, and let me ask you this, is this your first book or have you written many books before?
So I've written a number of articles or blog posts, but I haven't written a book, right? This is something that, we'll see where it goes. It might go published into paper, it might stay as an ebook and then go from there. But there's a number of principles that I've learned from my mentors, but also principles that I've learned from the hard and fast experiences of life.
Okay.
And one of the things that I get when I do speaking, just to kind of give a background to the book, is people might give pushback because they kind of look and go, how are you old enough to share about life or relationships or career? And the answer is that if you're willing to learn from someone, then usually you're open to willing to learn from almost anyone that you feel has something to offer you. Mm-hmm. So age aside, looks aside, youth aside, sometimes it's the people that are freshest to a situation that have the most wisdom. But it's also sometimes people who look the freshest that you can say, there's something untainted. And maybe there's something that's valuable because there's something that they have to offer. Because they're not coming in with the same, blindfolds of here's all the reasons why this can't work, or here's all the reasons why that's not going to be, a good approach. But that being said, I have had over a dozen years of experience working with people and coaching people. So I believe that a lot of the success and a lot of the challenges that have come my way were, heaven sent, that they were meant to be, they were custom tailored to be for me in my life, but they were also custom tailored for me to share with others in what I do. So the background of the book is that's the premise. There's so much that I have, and if there's challenges that I had to work through, that I had to experience, even if it was custom designed for me, there are people out there that need to hear about this, and they're looking for that way in which something is said. Because there's been times, I'm sure for you, the same thing, where you're at a lecture or you hear someone talking about something, and you've heard this concept before, but then they say it in a different way, and it just clicks. Mm-hmm. And when it clicks for you, that's transformative. And so it could be 100 people, 1,000 people, 100 million people reading this book. And if it clicks for one person, then it really clicks for hundreds or thousands of people. Because that click, that transformation, where a person goes, aha, got it, that's what needs to change, then has an impact on all the people they interact with, or potentially all the people they interact with for the next number of years of their life. So a big part of this book is realizing that if I've been able to receive a tremendous amount with which I've been able to give back and have an impact, here's an opportunity to have more of an impact to more people. That's one. In the book, some of the things that we're talking about are getting clear about why you're here. So some people might take that as a religious or spiritual question. Some people might take that as a focused, career-driven question. Some people might take that as a philosophical question. However people want to take that, we often ask ourselves the same series of questions during the day. I forget who it was, but I believe there was a comedian that used to say that men and women each have a tape playing in their head. Men ask the question of like, okay, what now? Like, what's the point of this? And women ask the question of, am I enough? Am I loved enough? Am I beautiful enough? Am I this enough? Am I that enough? But it's a constant tape that's playing faster and faster over and over throughout the day, right? It starts when they wake up. Men kind of just ask the question in the morning and like, maybe they figure it out, maybe they don't, right? So the book is also written because people are asking questions to themselves, not realizing that there are answers. And my approach is going to be a blend of maybe some of the softer approaches in life that are more heartfelt or more, in tune with the spiritual side. And it's also an approach where there are some real solid things, solid principles that are absolute musts. And without having them, you're not following the rules of life, so to speak, or the rules of how to actually design the life that you're looking to live. And people have no idea what they really want or what their ideal day looks like, right? But they just know that it's not this. So talking about the why you're here, okay, getting clear on why you're here is part one. The second pillar of the book is getting clear on what are the dreams, right? If you have all the time and all the resources, it's a typical coaching question, but most people never really get to the bottom of what they really, really need and what they really, really want. And so that's going to be part of it also. And then the third part is also, okay, so now that we figured that out, now what? What are the next stages? How do you get me from there to where I actually want to be? Because there's a big jump. We often get that clarity and it's inspiring and we have an idea and a direction. And then a year later, it's the same stuff. You ask the people, there's follow-up, what happened? And I think that's something I've seen to be very unique in my coaching is that my clients really get results and they're getting it within a few sessions. And so I don't have the time to work with everyone in the world, right? Because I have only so many numbers of hours a week. But if there's a way that I could create a medium where people can now read it at their own pace, in their own place, they can learn from what I have to share and from what I've learned myself that's changed my life and many others in the comfort of their home while trying to help them also step out of their comfort zone.
Yeah, and I agree. That's one of the reasons, excuse me. And I agree. That's one of the reasons I actually wrote my book was exactly for that reason is because it's also a workbook. So it has exercise lines and things like that. And so it makes it interactive. However, it was so that, I write the book once and then somebody buys it. That doesn't matter where they are in the world. Somebody buys it and they're reading it. And then there's like you just said, you get that one little click that makes a big change for them. Then that's phenomenal. And then they can also take that to, and then like you were saying with the domino effect, how does that affect the person, somebody else? And then how does that affect that person's somebody else? So it just goes wider and wider and wider.
Yeah.
There's another book out there kind of talking about the domino effect. I usually reference this a lot for people that are wanting to make changes is a book called The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. Have you heard of that book?
I haven't. I have now.
Well, briefly what I'm going to go into is what the compound effect is. You make one little change and you consistently are making that change. And that change will compound and get bigger, 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 and bigger.
Right.
As an example, let's say you have two people. You got person A, you got person B. They are both are exactly the same weight. Let's say they're a little bit overweight. And person A decides to cut out 100 calories out of their diet. They don't drink that one can of Coke. So that's 100 there. However, everything else is exactly the same. They maintain the same diet, the same lack of exercise program, whatever. Just one person takes out 100 calories. After an entire year, that's 3,600 calories, right? 365. That's 36,000 calories. Which there's 3,600 calories in a pound. So by just that 100 calories taken out of their diet over the course of a year compounds to a loss of 10 pounds of weight.
Right.
And that's another visual one is I always like to use this. If I had a gun, if I was going to shoot somebody that was standing 1 inch in front of me and I was pointing right at them, what are my chances of hitting them?
Pretty high.
Pretty high. Now let's move that person 10 feet back. Or let's say they move them 1 mile back. Any slight fluctuation of my angle, it will compound to be a complete miss.
Trajectory.
It's trajectory in this case.
Sure.
So it's any small changes will have a compound effect over time as long as you're consistent with it. So that's the premise of that book.
Which is a beauty, and it's also a toxin, meaning it's also it can be damaging as well. One of the things that I get with a lot of my female clients is that women tend to affirm each other, right? So if they're having struggles in a relationship or in a career, so they go out that night and hang out with their girlfriends. What do their girlfriends say? Oh, I don't know why any guy would ever not say yes to you, or I don't know why your people at your workplace are treating you that way, right? Or something similar. And what do their friends basically tell them what they want to hear? But as a coach, I tell them what they need to hear. But I help them get to that clarity without actually telling them and talking at them. I speak with them, but speak with the part of them that's kind of that wise mind, that part that realizes when they hear something like, oh yeah, that's really true. And while they're in a place of receptivity, because there is an importance of just being able to kind of let loose and have your friends tell you that you're awesome, even if life is not telling you the same. But there's also the part of life is going to keep telling you that same message until you figure out what's sending you the message you don't want to hear. Right?
It starts by tapping you on the shoulder, and then eventually, if you keep ignoring it, it's going to hit you over the face with a 2x4.
Yeah, and sometimes it's a little bit too late when you're hit over the face because you're in a coma because you're going, oh my gosh, what just hit me? So It's a lot easier when the messages are softer.
Yes,
right?
I agree.
So tough love with a hug, but still a firm hug, I find can be sometimes very powerful. But, with going back to the idea of, women who are affirmed one time after the next, they're not getting clear on where do I keep sabotaging my success in my dating, in my career, in my happiness.
Okay.
And truth is that really applies to men as well. Men don't really have the pattern of affirming each other and saying, oh, you look a certain way when someone needs to hear, or come to that understanding through delicate and calculated and skillful coaching that helps them move forward.
Okay. Well, I'm going to move on with the show a little bit.
Sure.
And one of the things I usually like to ask, because you're an entrepreneur, just like most of the people that are listening to this show.
Yeah.
And I know you're dealing with the relationship coaching, you're doing with the business coaching and such. However, for people that are just starting out, so sometimes they like to hear about people's successes. What are some early successes that you had in your business? And you can talk about ones that were like from 12 years ago. And let's actually do about this. Let's go like some of your very early successes when you were just starting out. Could you share with the audience about that from what you experienced?
So I would say that the way I got into this was actually I just kind of fell into it. It was really more out of necessity that, people were needing someone to talk to and someone to help them clarify things, but not someone who's going to tell them an extra opinion. Right? Because if you think about it, most anyone's happy to give someone dating advice or life advice or career advice. And the way that this started out is people just needed someone that really just understood them, that could hear things from their perspective, not just listening, not just an open ear, but could really hear things from their perspective and step myself into their shoes, and then help give them some strength to actually overpower whatever obstacle they were facing. And it really started out with just friends that needed something, or they wanted that person that they could go to. And I was the go-to person, and in my family and my friends. And slowly it became, it was really a hobby for a while, which is why I was doing it part-time. But it became where I remember there were nights where from 7 to 10 at night, I'd have people who booked me, like, can I speak to you at 7? Oh no, that's booked. How about 8? No, 9? Okay, 9 to 10. And then friends of friends, and then family members of friends. So I kind of just fell into it. So nothing I was doing was necessarily intentional or I was thinking about it. So I would say some of the successes that I think any entrepreneur has is if you have a core genius, if you have this natural sense or pull towards something, some of the successes are going to come strictly from that, and you have to trust the process.
Okay.
Now, I would say some of the conscious successes when I was just starting out would be seeing that what I didn't think necessarily might have an impact, but still just being genuine and authentic and there to try to be there for someone else ended up being very helpful. It was very successful and very helpful because they needed something and I necessarily didn't understand or know right away what it was they needed, but I was just trying to be the best version of me. I was just trying to trust that there was a process and just be open and see things from their point of view. And I think that allowed me to be successful, at least initially.
Let me ask you this, because I think a lot of people, especially coaches, will fall into a similar boat that you are because they have an expertise in something, like say they're a fashion coach or something like that. You know, they had that good eye, or in your case, you were very open and receptive to other people. When is it, in your experience, and I'm kind of throwing you under the bus here,
Sure.
when is it okay, or when did you go from being that listening ear to people actually paying you to be that listening ear?
So So the reason that I was sharing with you that it was part-time is because I only transitioned to doing coaching full-time in the last year and a half.
Oh, okay.
Because in the whole process, I was actually pursuing a whole career in healthcare, getting my doctorate and going through all the ranks in a different field. But all the while realizing that some of the more I did it, the more I realized it wasn't for me. And in the process of doing it, seeing how coaching was actually one of the most effective interventions in helping people who came to treat physical symptoms. And it was really oftentimes treating the physical symptoms, there's an approach of just treating the symptom. And many times people who don't get better, they have certain chronic conditions. It's not coming from the symptoms. It's not coming from the body cause. It's coming from an underlying cause, which is usually up here or over here. And so helping them with that was a way that I transitioned to realizing, you know what, there's a really, really there's a lot of people that are sick, not medically, but here in the heart. And starting to help people with that, I found to actually heal the symptoms faster than all these things I spent years learning about in medicine and healthcare. And so that was a big part of the success, was also just being open to seeing what you might not expect to be a success or what you might not expect to work, but just being open to like whatever it is. Okay. Oftentimes we walk into something and say, okay, this is how it's going to be. And this is the best way. And I know what I want. And we're so focused and kind of tunnel vision. But if you want to be a success, I mean, a big part of it is realizing, there's wind in life. And sometimes I got to be able to flow with wherever it's blowing.
Kind of like the branches on a tree. You have to be able to just.
Right.
Okay. But you're still strong, but you're still thin.
Right. You have to be grounded just like a tree. Absolutely.
Okay. Fantastic. And now, of course, the flip side of this is that I always say that people learn more from their challenges or their failures.
Sure.
So, I mean, there's successes that, you learn some from that. You could possibly even learn a lot from that. But it's those things that were like, oh, gosh, this went completely horribly wrong. I didn't even expect this to happen. Would you be willing to share some of your early or even more recent either challenges or actual failures that you've witnessed?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So one of the challenges that I had, at least in the beginning, was thinking that the things that, the way that I see the world is similar to how other people see it, or at least the way that I see the culture, right? Or the culture of how things should be is similar to how other people see it. And one of the times I remember I had a consult with a married woman who lives in Saudi Arabia. And that was not a typical thing for a coach, right? A white American coach to be, coaching that kind of clientele. And I actually had several clients, and actually still have clients who live in countries that are North African or West African, Arabic, even working with clients who live in Asia. So learning about life from them, even though I'm supposed to be the expert, if I'm always in a position of learning, first of all, that's a challenge to always keep yourself grounded in that and realize like you're here to learn also. Because it also allows you to realize I can see things from their perspective and learn from my clients, that there's that relationship. And respecting that they might have a totally different set of values, beliefs about what they would do and what's important, right? When I was working with people in the Middle East, I wouldn't say that I agreed with everything that they had to say. But I was able to understand that we both had commonalities that really connected us. And that's what allowed for us to have meaningful dialogue and meaningful session. So I would say that's one of the challenges, to always keep yourself realizing that just because I would choose this doesn't mean that that is wrong, right? That I'm not biased to a certain side, but staying with the person and stepping into it. Because you know what, if you went through their experiences and their background, you probably choose the same things, right? You can say this.
And I fully agree with you, because I was fortunate enough to, in my early days, this is back in the 80s, late 80s, and where I was in the United States Navy, and I was stationed in Japan for 4 years.
Thank you for your service.
My pleasure. And that actually gave me, because I was from a small town in Northwest Florida, I mean, just outside of Pensacola.
Okay.
And when I joined the service, I mean, being immersed in these other cultures was phenomenal. I mean, I was stationed in Japan on ship, but I did go to the Philippines. I did go to Australia. I saw a whole bunch of different cultures. And
Yeah.
when you're immersed in another culture, then it does humble you. And I'm so glad that you're able to connect with people from other countries and even other cultures and other religious situations where, you're not putting your own bias on, okay, this you have to do this the Catholic way, or you have to do this the Christian way, or the
Right.
Hindi way, or
Right.
whatever. But you're saying, you're keeping yourself open for that. And for those of you that are out there that are listening or watching in this show, one of the challenges, this actually is in my book. This is one of the challenges I ask people to do, and Isaac here is kind of already doing it. But I would say, go and immerse yourself in another culture. And say, if you've got some Chinese, let's say you're white, if you've got some Chinese friends at work, say, hey, let's go and maybe get together with one of them on one of their holidays, or if you're Christian, go out with people that are Buddhists, or go out with people that are Jewish, or from other different cultures, and that would really make yourself so much more well-rounded as a human being.
Hmm.
That's just my own input on
Yeah,
that.
sure. I actually lived in the Middle East for a while, and I didn't just live there as a tourist, right? Seeing myself as an American who's just got a different address, but I actually joined the workforce and for a period of time and got to actually really see the ins and outs, and working in a business and working with people who are also from various parts of the spectrum of different cultures of the melting pot that is in the Middle East,
Hmm.
and from people who are also expats from their own countries. And it was amazing to see and to grow from that experience and learn a lot about myself and a lot about how to get to know, how to assess yourself, and also work with people that normally you would think would be difficult to work with, or different, or don't speak the same language that
Hmm.
you do, not just in words, but in their values and their heart and the way they think, right? So to work with people in that setting, it keeps you on your toes, but it also keeps you, kind of nose down, where you're thinking, okay, like I can be humble here. It
Hmm.
forces you to be humble because you realize I'm not in my home territory, right? I'm
Hmm.
not. There's a reason why statistically, if you look at sports teams, there is always a home field advantage.
Hmm.
When you immerse yourself in someone else's world, whether it's physically being in their culture, or whether it's just stepping into the world for a session or two, or a year of sessions, you really get to know other people, and you get to know them in a way where you actually learn about yourself, because you're now in a
Yes.
place of receptivity. So, going back to the failure part, I would say that one of the biggest challenges that I've had is learning to consistently see failures as opportunities where I was really successful. It just, I didn't have the outcome that I thought I wanted in the beginning, didn't happen. And so turning it around and being able to flip it, rather than flipping it on me and deciding certain things about myself and self-value and worth and success and all that, I flipped around and said, okay, well, how is this successful? Because we often just see a failure as a failure, nothing more. But I had to learn how to see a failure and turn around and say, okay, how is this really a success?
And that's funny, because I mentioned this in probably half of my shows, and I'm just going to reiterate it again here, just so that Isaac can hear, because he's not heard me say this before. And when I was going after my NLP practitioner certification,
Mm-hmm.
there are 14 presuppositions, and one of the presuppositions is, it says there is no such thing as failure, only feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the
Right.
feedback may not be what you wanted. Maybe
Right.
like
Negative or positive,
negative,
it's still
and
feedback.
it's still, yeah, feedback is feedback. It's neutral. So
Yeah.
if it's going to be negative or positive, is your own personal take on that.
Right.
And as an example, when I actually, and I shared this in the book, and I've shared this on a couple of shows before. At one point in time, I actually spent the weekend in jail while I was in training for my A school in the Navy. And I was in what was known as the nuclear powered program, which is the most prestigious program that the Navy had at that time, back in the 80s. It may still be one of the most prestigious programs. And when I got out, I was obviously, when I had to go to court on Monday, I'm not where I'm supposed to be on base, and therefore, I got in trouble with the military as well. Well, they allowed me to stay in the nuclear powered program. However, I had to maintain a 90 GPA, and I missed one too many questions on the final exam, and I graduated with an 89.86 GPA. And they say, well, we don't do second waivers, so you're out of the nuke power program. Now, that's the whole reason I joined the Navy, was to do that. And I looked at that as like, oh my gosh, I felt like that was a huge failure. I was in a temporary processing unit for 3 months. Like, they didn't know where I was supposed to go. So I was supposed to go to, was it Quantico, whatever it was, for the nuclear power school. And I mean, I could look at that as being a huge failure. But because of that, I got to be stationed overseas in Japan for 4 years.
Right.
So that event, that negative, what I consider it to be a negative event at that time, about being in jail, in a holding tank for three days, actually ended up completely changing my life forever, that I did not know at that time.
Right.
I didn't realize that until years later, just how I'm so glad I did what I did that night. That completely changed the course of my life forever.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
So
it's great that you can connect the dots like that.
Well, and that's the whole thing is, one of the things and this is kind of going off topic, but one of the things I like to look at is, what is a perceived negative event that has occurred to you in your life, and how has it been positively affected you now where we are today?
So at one point when I was going for my doctorate in healthcare, I was getting a lot of feedback that I didn't want. And it basically came to a head where one day I was basically called into the director's office and handed a dismissal letter. Now, at this point, I had been doing great academically. I had been doing great, or I thought I'd been doing great in the practical portion of my schooling. And I was like, this is probably a typo. Like, my name is not supposed to be on this letter. But after spending countless hours in pre-med, an undergraduate, which was very intense for me, because it basically meant, my day started at 8 a.m. and it ended around 10:30, depending on when I got out of class that night. And that was a typical thing Monday through Thursday. So I had spent a tremendous amount of hours studying, preparing, working towards, and trying to get to this place where I could even be, a second year or a third year, in a doctorate program. And so it didn't feel like it was just like X number of years. It felt like it was decades, because I'd worked a tremendous amount to get there. So when I was handed this letter for the first time, I was devastated. It totally, not only that, but the way it was delivered was first by the director. And then when I went home 2 days later, when I was home, I got a letter that was served to me, meaning the same way that you would serve someone if they were being sued. They did the signature mail approach. So I was being served with a dismissal letter, and I was like, you have to just rub it in. So it ended up that I turned it into something that was better, and it was just, a semester off, and I was back in, and the whole thing became something that really forced me to just really ponder and be like, what am I doing this for? What is my why? And one of the things that I learned is that, when we succeed, we tend to party, but when we fail, we tend to ponder. And it really forced me to ponder. But thankfully, it forced me to ponder enough that I proceeded to transition to another program, was back on track. But then 2 years later, after a tremendous amount of work, I was handed another dismissal letter. Right? So here I am getting one consistent feedback with years of hard work and a tremendous amount of anguish and stress, and, everything from having trouble sleeping at night because I'm just like, I'm thinking about it, but, don't let them see you sweat, right? Don't share it with people, or don't tell everyone in your life what's going on, right? Because what are they going to say? What are they going to think? So being alone in this process, being alone in our failure, was definitely something that was really a challenging part. And when it came to transitioning into something different, like doing coaching full time, one of the things that allowed me that opportunity was the time in between being in a program and not being in a program, where I was able to really step back and go, we're often so busy running from the rat race in life. We're just from here to there, and then we just repeat. Monday morning hits, and it's repeat again and again. And then we wake up and it's like December 31st. We go, can you believe a whole year passed? I was like, well, it went just as fast as the other ones, like, what's that different? Or we wake up and 20 years later, our kids, growing and moving to college. And we wonder what happened. And the answer is life, right? Presence, not being present. And so I realized that when I was handed the feedback that I so desperately did not want, it forced me to start looking for the life that I did want.
Okay.
And I can see, it takes time to really start to see, like, why am I here? What am I doing? Why did that happen? And I realized that the career coaching that I do, a big part of why it's powerful is because I thought I really wanted something and I was really successful at it. I was really good at it, but it was just like slightly the wrong field, right?
Mm-hmm.
Still working with people, still helping them with problems, still helping them get better, just a little bit more to the one side, right? More shifting that. And so because I've been through failure, because I've been through rejected business world, because I've worked really hard for something and been told no, not once, not twice, right? But multiple times, right? There was another rejection. There's another dismissal letter in there, by the way. There's a third one. But learning how to take these challenges, right, of perseverance and saying, you know what, maybe the answer is no versus maybe I should just keep pushing. And to understand where that balance is, that was something that was definitely one of the failures or challenges that made it difficult for me, but makes it so much easier for me to understand where other people are coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because there's a saying, don't judge your friend until you're in their place, until you walk a mile in their shoes. Right? There's another way of saying it, which is don't make fun of a friend. Don't make fun of someone until you walk a mile in their shoes. Right? Well, why? Because that way you're a mile away and you have their shoes. Right? But really, perhaps the moral really is just very simple, right? Until you really get where someone's coming from, it's really hard. And so I had to be through these experiences. I had to go through these challenges, these downs, in order to really understand, well, how do I raise myself up? And how can I really be there for someone else who's in that place and who doesn't know? Because I went to seminars with some of the greats of the day, and I asked them directly, should I be in this program? Should I be going down this avenue? Is there another avenue for me? And they didn't know. And I realized, well, of course they didn't know because I had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
So that was something that really pushed me to start understanding me and start understanding my life in a way that I'm now really able to help other people more because I've been there.
Okay. Well, and that's what I think why you wrote the book, which is why you're a coach, and I know you've certified through a couple of different organizations as well. Is that you had these life lessons that you've had, which is why I call the show "Life's Little Lessons." You have these life
there are
lessons.
some little lessons on one piece of paper at a time. Yeah.
Yes. However, that rejection letter is going to do essentially one of two things, in my opinion. Is either going to be an obstacle as to how committed are you to doing it, or is it makes you say, hey, maybe this isn't the right path. Let me go down a different path that's going to be more self-rewarding. Yeah. So that's a personal question that you have to answer at any kind of a challenge or big challenge that comes up.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
Okay, well, as we're about to wrap up the show, one of the last things I always like to ask people to do, or one of the last couple of things I like to ask people to do, is: are there any lessons or any remaining upbeat moments, or any kind of things that you would like, tidbits of information that you would like to offer any of the viewers or the people listening on the podcast?
Yeah, so with entrepreneurs and coaches and anyone who's kind of starting or running a small business, the number one challenge is really onboarding. That, at least from what I've heard, onboarding new clients, onboarding new business, new opportunities. And a lot of times people feel like the work, the results is all on your shoulders. And I think one of the most important things is to realize that, and I've been told this by so many of my own ex-mentors, that there's a common belief that, yeah, we have a direct impact and we are creators. And I agree with a lot of that, but I also agree with that we have to realize that there's only so much we can do, but we cannot control a result. We cannot control an outcome, but we can get a very, very, very good idea of what works and what doesn't. But the result, the completion of that coming to fruition, it's not on us, right? A surgeon will walk into a surgery room. They might have done this operation, and this is their specialty. They've done it for 50 years. They know it. They've done it better than any other surgeon in the world. But they will still tell you with honesty, I cannot guarantee results. I can do the absolute best, but it's not guaranteed because there's always factors that come into play. And when we feel like, well, I need to get more clients, there are things we can do. There are methods, there are successful principles that to get us there. But to realize that your job, our job is to do the thing that we can do, or whatever things we can do, and try to remove any obstacles in the way, but also realize that it doesn't mean it's going to happen the way that we think it should happen, and not to beat ourselves up and not to really stop ourselves because we didn't get the results. No, the result is the thing that will naturally happen or naturally not happen after we set into motion all the things that are within our power, right? The effort put forth and the skill and the training, those are all within our power, right? Applying for that job, asking, will you marry me? Asking for a first date, asking to have a difficult conversation, or asking for a promotion, a pay raise, asking for reconsideration after getting a dismissal letter, right? Those are all within our power. And we can do as much as we can, but realize that we will get what we need when we need it. But we'll also get what we need when we're ready for it. And sometimes when we're getting what we're not ready for, it's because we need it.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that with us, Isaac.
Yeah, sure.
And for those of you out there, again, Isaac here has a book coming out here in the next few months, and we were discussing before. This is the working title of the book, but you haven't finalized that this is the working title yet.
It's under edit.
It could be the subtitle. You never know.
Right.
So the working title right now is, as he told me earlier, was called the life you never knew you have. Had. Okay, so right. It is past tense. Okay.
And so going back to the idea of being dismissed from school, right? I had a life at that time that I never knew I really had. I thought that my life was basically focused on this next goal. It was, goal oriented. The next destination, the next paycheck, the next opportunity was going to be the thing that then got me to the next opportunity, which then got me to the next opportunity. But the whole time I was living in this place where I never knew I really had the life that I had. Meaning where that right now wasn't good enough, or I wasn't good enough, because the life that I thought I should have wasn't the one that I actually did have. So the life that you never knew you had or have is really about the presence, that right now you have a life that you never even knew you have. And if that's what you have, then anything that you do beyond that is just it's just icing. But starting from that ground of, I really have so much of what I already want is already in my life. And being able to see that, because then we don't feel like we're lacking, and coming from a place of we're in a deficit. Right? So many of us wake up in the morning, and before we even step out of bed, we're already, short on time, or running late, or hungry, or feel like, we're less than, or we don't have enough of something. And we just step into our day in a place of lack. And then we wonder why we're stressed.
Okay. And it's kind of funny because when you're saying that, the whole thing that keeps going inside my mind is being appreciative of what you currently have, or when it's kind of sad for when people only, at least in this country, in America, only give thanks really one day out of the year, which is right around Thanksgiving. And being thankful with what you currently have as well, because sometimes I forget. And I know that a lot of maybe yourself as well, and the audience out here that is listening or viewing this, forget how great things are. Because sometimes I will drive down, maybe I'm feeling down on myself or being depressed, whatever. Then I drive by and I see a homeless person holding up a sign like, okay, well, I have. So I'm thankful.
Yeah. And it's easy for us to think that the next thing is going to be that thing that does it. And it's easy for us to think that, well, if only this, then that, right? If then thinking. And that's usually the biggest thing that leads us to the next failure. Rather than realizing that thing of we're hoping then, or we eventually want, seeing how the seeds for it are already in your life. So when I got a dismissal letter, one of the things that really turned around for me was starting to see that the seeds. I remember learning from Jack Canfield. I actually went to one of his trainings, and he said, in the seed of every negative event is an opportunity of equal or greater opportunity or challenge, right? Meaning in the seed of something that's a negative event, it might seem like it's the worst thing and it's just all going downhill, like momentum would just bring me downhill. But seeing that planted into that negative is something that is of equal or greater opportunity. And realizing that life is always moving up. It's just sometimes, a heartbeat goes like this. right? Most people want it just to go like straight line, right?
Dead.
But the only people who have this heartbeat are the ones who live in the cemetery,
Yes.
right? But life is boring. Could you imagine going on a roller coaster that was just like this? No one would show up to the place.
Yeah.
So life is dynamic. Life is constantly, it's a heartbeat. It's a reason why humans' heartbeat goes like this, because that's what keeps us alive, right? And in fact, the stronger it is and the more fast that it can change, right? The ability of the heart to be able to regulate that. This is, by the way, I use my healthcare background to help have a different approach in teaching my client things. From the body, we can actually learn. So that heart rate, right? The ability to have ups and downs is actually what shows health and feeling alive.
Okay.
So always keep alive and realize that if nothing else, I got a heart that I didn't ask for. I can drive on roads I didn't have to build. I can read books that I never had to write, right? And I can drink water I never had to draw.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. That was very moving. Isaac, I want to say thank you for being on the show. However, before we go down that route, if people are wanting to get a hold of you, possibly for some of your coaching, or to find out more about the details of your book, or speaking engagements, or blogs that you've written, do you have a website or Facebook account or something like
Sure.
that you want to share with the audience?
Yeah, absolutely. So that would be great. And, if anyone has any questions or comments, or I'm happy to offer, a free consult for a 20-minute consult. If anyone has any questions, it'd be my pleasure. I'd love to hear from you guys. My website is isaacbardos.com. So it's ISAAC and then BARDOS.com. I should have my phone number and a way to contact me through the contact form, which comes to my email. And if you want an email, the email is just Isaac Bardos. So the same ISAAC BARDOS, the number 1@gmail.com. And I would love to hear your thoughts, comments, questions. I love that stuff. I love audience interaction. It's the best.
Okay. So those of you, if you didn't get it, his website is www.isaacbardos, B as in boy, ARDOS.com. And his email is very similar to that. It's Isaac Bardos, then followed by the number 1@gmail.com.
Yeah. And if you ever see me live, you're always welcome to come up to me, before or after a speaking opportunity or a gig, whatever it is. Love to see you. I'd love to hear about your thoughts from the interview.
And I would have to say he's an amazing speaker. I've actually seen him speak at least once or twice, because we belong to a function that meets here monthly here in Vegas. That's actually for speakers. So I know I've seen him speak as well. So he's a great speaker. And I want to say again, thank you for being on the show today. And again, if you want to get a hold of Isaac, it's www.isaacbardos.com. You can always find him also possibly on a repeat of this show on my website at kevinadunlap.com under the media tab, and you can either watch the video portion, which would be under video interviews, or if you just want to hear the podcast version of it, go under media podcast season 2, and you'll have him on there as well. So you can catch him anytime that you like.
Yeah,
and
we're great.
And I want to say thank you for being on the show today, Isaac.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, same here,
Kevin.
So, goodbye, everybody.
Hey, I wish you the best. Wish you the best luck with your business. All your endeavors. Good on you.
Cool. Good. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Life's Little Lessons with your host, author of Designing Your Own Destiny, Kevin A. Dunlap. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit kevinadunlap.com, facebook.com/kevinadunlap.author, and on Twitter @KevinADunlap. We'll catch you on the next episode of Life's Little Lessons.